Radio Improntadigitale alla ViewConference. So I'm here with Cory Doctorow, blogger, novelist, technology activist, and you work on copyright a lot. In a world where the copy is everywhere, is still meaningful the concept of copyright nowadays?
Sure, I think if we think of copyright as the sets of rules that we use to negotiate how the industry works, of course, because the industry is full of people who have lawyers and who have agents and who can negotiate this stuff. But I think that the idea that we should have a set of rules that can apply at the same time to Universal Studios when it's negotiating the rights to make a Harry Potter ride from Warner Studios, but also apply to a 12-year-old who wants to put up her own little Harry Potter fan website. That's crazy. You either end up with a set of rules that the 12-year-old can never figure out how to work, or with a set of rules that are so simplified that they will never serve the purposes of Universal and Warner. I think the problem with copyright is that we haven't figured out how to separate out industrial activity from cultural activity and how to create rules that are meaningful for cultural activity, and so we try to apply industrial rules to that. It's like, imagine you went out for dinner and you decided you were going to pick up the check, but when you paid for it, you had to register with the Financial Services Authority because you were transferring a sum of, 16 euros from one person to another. It's one thing to say banks should do that. I wish banks did do that. But it's another thing to say that every time, you loan someone 5 euros, you should be regulated by the finance industry.
So how can we make it work?
Well, I think we can come up with solutions that get copyright out of the way when it comes to individuals. Mostly that amounts to figuring out ways to make legal the things that most people think should be legal. So most of us have shared music with our friends all our lives. It's part of the musical tradition. Yeah. It's as old as music, really. Singing songs of the day, that's what music is. How do we make that legal? Well, in the past when we've had times where music was out of control, we couldn't control every use, we created blanket licenses. And we didn't charge people for them, we charged some intermediary, we charged someone in the middle for it. So on your radio station, if a DJ wants to play a song, he doesn't call the record label and say, I'm about to play some Wham, do you want 15 cents or 10 cents? He just pays the blanket license. He can play any music he can find. It doesn't matter if it's a bootleg, it doesn't matter if it came on vinyl, it doesn't matter if he downloaded it from a pirate site. It's legal to play it on his radio station. Why can't our ISP opt in to pay 5 euros per customer? And in exchange for that, the customers, us, get the right to do what we're already doing. And we figure out how to pay artists with that money. We collect a pool of money, pay it to artists. It's what we do for radio, it's what we do for live performance, it's what we do for karaoke, it's what we do for bars and clubs and malls, taxis and hairdressers. In fact, we do it everywhere except the internet. On the internet, we have this crazy idea that a better solution would be to alternate between wagging our fingers at people and telling them that they're crooks and suing them. So far, no one's ever made any money that way. No musician has made a penny from any of these lawsuits.
Okay, what's the concept of close enough to rock and roll in new media?
Of?
Close enough to rock and roll.
Close enough for rock and roll. Yeah. Well, so, rock and roll, this expression, that's close enough for rock and roll. The idea of rock and roll was that you sacrificed perfection for energy. So, the important thing wasn't to make sure that every note was perfect. The important thing was to just keep going. And in new media, I think that we sacrifice some of the polish that we associate with traditional media, but we substitute for it energy and velocity. So whereas before you might get a movie every 3 years from a studio that's 90 minutes long and every frame was perfect, now you might get people making serial fiction in their basements and producing a new installment every day. And there's lots of flaws and lots of places where you can see how it works, but the velocity of it and the engagement of it and the direct connection with audiences substitutes for it. I think that usually a new medium is good because it's good at all the things that the old medium was bad at. It's not good because it's better than the old medium was. We don't like TV because it's better at making you use your imagination than radio. We like TV because it does a bunch of things that radio can't do. Radio is great if you're walking around. You can put radio on and clean the dishes, whereas you can't do that with TV. But TV is great for showing you pictures. And so I think that judging a new medium by the strengths of the old medium is never the right way to go.
Okay. One of the most famous Steve Jobs motto was it's better to be a pirate and be in the Navy. Do you think it was a pirate or he became the Navy?
I think every pirate wants to be an admiral. So I think that it's in human nature, I think, to think of what you did as legitimate, but when someone does it to you as theft. So that story goes all the way through the history of media. You know, you have the first records, the composers who wrote sheet music, they said that when you recorded their songs, that was theft. Right? And then you had the people who were recording songs, the performing artists, who said, no, 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 this is progress. And then the broadcasters came along, and they started taking the records and playing them on the radio. And the performers said, well, when we took the compositions, that was progress. When you take the records we made out of them and put them on the radio, that's theft. Then you had the cable operators, who came and took the broadcasts. And the broadcasters said, well, when we took the records, progress. When you take the signals, theft. Then you had the VCR makers who came along, and the cable operator said, when we took the broadcasts, progress. When you took our cable signals, theft. And now you have the company that made the VCR, Sony, now a big entertainment company, and says, when we made the VCR, progress. When you take those movies and put them on the internet, theft. Every pirate wants to be an admiral.
Okay. What do you look for in science fiction?
What do I look for in science fiction? That's a good question. I'm thinking of the last few science fiction novels I enjoyed. I guess, first and foremost, you look for the things that make fiction work. People, stories, tension, surprises, emotional arcs. But I also look for using that as a way to comment on the aspirations and fears we have as a society about our technology today. Science fiction, for me, works best when it's an allegory about contemporary relationships to technology, and that it projects them into the future as a way of kind of making it more obvious what your point is. In the same way that if you have a strain of bacteria and you want to know what it is, you put it in a petri dish and let it grow. If you have an idea and you want to know what it means, you can put it in a society around that idea, and the idea takes over the society in your book, and you can kind of talk about that idea.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.